Well, welcome everyone to Three Guys, One Music. I'm Jamie. I'm here with Mike and Grant, as always. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
What is happening? Ooh, the music going away. All right.
See that
You
coming?
surviving the snowstorm?
Yeah, it's been an interesting one. Yeah, crazy stuff.
No.
Some wild video in the area of people slipping and sliding.
I'm sure every
Actually, two of the highways are closed here. From what I read online, that the Kansas City area, is it 70 and 29, maybe? So I think both of those highways, they're shut down, or your access is limited at the very least.
Yeah,
So yeah, the roads are, well, it's, as I've shown Mike a little bit ago, it's currently 9 degrees real temperature where I'm at. So pretty cold.
It's a little chilly.
A little chilly, yeah. And that's only supposed to stay this way for the duration of the week. It might get above freezing by Friday, so we'll see. So pretty cold. So how you guys doing? How's the weather been? Not quite as
Yeah, not quite as bad. We just got a not even a dusting and little cool. It's going to stay cool here, but not anywhere like you got.
Yeah,
we're going to get down to the 20s and some teens next.
Yeah, this weekend may be interesting for you guys, though. I heard you guys might have one brewing.
Polar vortex.
Yeah. I think this is going to be an interesting winter.
Yeah,
it's looking that way. Well, this week we're going to be talking about basically how we currently listen to music. We've discussed this a little bit over the last year, how to approach an episode like this, what formats do we use? And when we say how we listen to music, how we accept music into our lives, not how we analyze music or how we get music, but literally how we get music, how we receive it and listen to it. So we'll just kind of talk about that amongst ourselves and share that with you guys. I guess I shouldn't say amongst ourselves, but this is for you guys. And but we'll talk about what we've been listening to, of course.
both of them.
And I will go first. I been listening to Elvis Costello's 1978 release, This Year's Model.
That's
really been digging that. I think that might be my favorite of his, and I really like the debut record. The third record, is it Oliver's Army? I think Oliver's Army is the third record. Maybe.
The third or fourth, I don't know.
That's 79, so it would be right after This Year's Model. Then Trust would be the fourth one, I think. Maybe there's one in 1980, but anyway. Yeah, I really like This Year's Model. I think that's maybe his most Elvis record, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's really good. And the band, the bass player and the drummer, the attractions, God, that's a good package. And I really like the songs on that record. Yeah. And I've been listening to Roxy Music's 1975 release, Siren. Really been enjoying that one here recently. And finally, I've been listening to something new for me, a duo, two brothers, Hermanos Guterres.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to a couple of different releases, but primarily Sonido Cosmico, I think is how you pronounce it. And it's just really cool. It's just, I don't know if you would want to listen to that in the car while you're driving at night. It might put you to sleep, but it's just super cool. And it's like sunset music. That's how I think about stuff like that. I really dig it. But really been enjoying that. How about you guys?
It's cool.
Yeah, you sent us that link, and I was checking them out, and I was like, "Oh, this is right up my alley." Because and I sent you a couple examples of stuff, and I went down that rabbit hole of that. Let's, for lack of a better term, let's call it sunset.
Yeah,
Western guitar sound or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got a vibe to it for sure.
Yeah. And I pulled out of a lot of Los Lobos deep cuts and
Yeah.
some Chris Isaac, As I Sent You. And
Yeah. I
just,
like that Chris Isaac song. I had not heard that one before.
yeah, that whole
I
album.
like it very much.
And but yeah, he's always had a great guitar tones on all his albums.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing specific. I've been streaming a lot of shows, catching since the weather's been terrible. So other than just spotty listening here and there, not really delved into anything like I usually do. So that's about it. For me.
Well, I've been listening to Snarky Puppy. If you're familiar with them,
Yeah.
Modern jazz fusion kind of band. Fun stuff, not for everybody, but I enjoy it. What else have I been listening to? Clock Opera is an English pop band. Much different live. I watched a few live videos on YouTube, but kind of in the same vein as Air, which I mentioned a few weeks ago. Something it's I almost said inoffensive. What a hard what's the last thing you want to hear your music described as? Oh, I've heard it. It's inoffensive. It's it's in the background playing. I know it's there. I shouldn't say that. It's really good stuff. Clock Opera's had a few hits in Europe. I don't know that anything's made it over here, but it's a good pop dance band.
I like the name.
Yeah, good stuff. And I feel bad now. Inoffensive. What a terrible thing to say. But yeah, they're a good group. And again, I've listened to the greatest band of the late 70s, Little River Band. I love them. Excellent. Great harmonies.
Very inoffensive.
Yeah.
Great melodies.
In a good way.
In a good way.
It's like you.
Yeah, they were so sophisticated.
Inoffensive. I hope I'm inoffensive. Probably not.
I don't know if you've ever offended me.
Oh, the night is young.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think the Little River Band were they were arguably one of, besides Steely Dan, they might have been the most. They had the potential to write these really sophisticated songs. Like Reminiscing might be the most sophisticated that a lot of people would know. But you had Lady, Cool Change, Lonesome Loser. I mean, these were just really well crafted songs.
Happy Anniversary is such a
Happy Anniversary. Yeah.
Such a great
good stuff. And they had like 2 or 3 singers, I think, in the band.
Yeah.
At least 2, and they were just really good. I mean, I guess after, was it Glenn Shorrock? Was that his name?
Oh man.
He left, and then the other guy came in, and then they had the bass player singing, and then they had another lead singer. So they had like 4 singers over the course of 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. About 81 was their peak, I think. And unfortunately, litigation and that kind of thing ruined the band. People trying to own the name. I don't think there's an original member in the current band.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, those guys would be 70-ish, 75.
But I mean, the tunes that left, the tunes of that era were excellent.
They've aged quite well, in my opinion. But they do sound of the time, but boy, they're well crafted, and I think they're very good songs. Okay, so we'll talk about our topic, which is again how we listen to music, and I guess this is a segue. How we get our music today. It's I don't think about it too much. I know that we've had discussions over the last several weeks. Like, I don't do a lot of streaming, and we'll get into that, but we listen to music in the car differently than we used to. We have access to so much more stuff than we ever have in our lifetime, or anybody has. Virtually millions and millions of songs we can listen to. We never had that option before.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of give everybody, the younger peeps, kind of the background. I mean, and there's no big mystery in this. You've had the radio for the last, 80, 100 years. People enjoy that, but you think about the radio. I don't want to give a full history of how people have enjoyed music, but literally, just a quick couple of minutes. I mean, people, it was a big deal to even have a radio 100 years ago. People just sat around and listened to that. It was like a big event.
Mhm.
That was special. And I'll get to why I'm saying this in a second. Whenever you have to take time out to listen to something, it of course has more importance and it has more weight to it than if it's just easily accessible. And then you've got, say through the 30s and 40s, basically the same thing. And then TV really got popular in the 50s. And to have a TV, you know, but then these kids, you had transistor radios coming and they could put that under their pillow, or by their head and enjoy all this music for the
It
first
was nice.
time. Yeah, I mean, it was,
And
and
it
it was
sounded
inexpensive enough that you could afford it.
Mhm.
and it sounded terrible, but you still
Yeah.
appreciated being
Yeah.
able to get that
Yeah, because
those songs.
a novelty, and you were
Yeah.
like, "This is great."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, so, it was still a big deal. I mean, if you really were tuned into music, you just feel like, "Okay, I've got access to all this different stuff," and you were getting turned on to stuff that you could never have chosen, to go down to your record store to listen to. Like, I know Billy Gibbons, I remember reading about him, lead guitar and singing for, ZZ Top. They were so close to Mexico, they would pick up these Mexican radio stations and getting turned on to and country music and Mexican music, and it really influenced how they thought about music and what they ended up liking,
Yeah.
and really shaped your tastes, I guess is how you should say it. But okay, so and then of course by the time FM came into the ether, in the late 60s, early 70s. I think FM was created in the late 60s.
There was no static at all.
Yeah. And the music business took up in a whole new thing. So people were, of course, for the previous however many years, 45s were popular. Listening to these songs at home on record players that were relatively inexpensive. So you had that generation enjoying 45s and LPs. And then by the time late 60s, early 70s came around, LPs were really popular. And then you had 8 tracks come in, and then cassettes, and then CDs in the late 80s. So, and then LPs finally faded out. And of course, for the
Like coming
last
back.
10 or
Cassettes coming
15
back.
years, whatever the time frame is, it's been more and more in vogue. It's a bit hipster,
Mhm.
but it is a great medium to listen to music, and it's a very
Yeah.
enjoyable. And to kind of come back to taking time out to actually put a record on
Yeah, it's a
and
visceral
carve
experience.
out time, right?
Yeah.
Carve out time to listen to something. It takes on another, set of importance or just level of importance for somebody. So you've got the basically 100 years of listening to music right there. And now, of course, we've got MP3s. We've got all the streaming. People can put music on their computer. I personally have way too much music that I've purchased, and how you choose to listen to music. So let's talk about how we choose to listen to music. Mike, would you say that in the last 5 years, let's just focus on the last 5 years.
Okay.
What would you say how you normally would carve out a week of listening time? What would that entail? You can just be as specific or non-specific as you want to.
Wow. Got to think about that. 5 years. I really didn't. I live really close to work, so I don't
Yeah.
listen to the radio on the way to work. Sometimes I'd have some music on, whether it's an MP3 or whatever, a CD.
Mhm.
But only recently have I started really listening to music constantly. And that's because I have a space where I've got my Bluetooth speaker and I can stream from my phone all day. when I say I'm listening to someone's catalog, I really am. I put on their first album, then their second, and I have, 9 hours a day that I can listen to that. In the last 5 years, it's hard for me to give up technology. I may not adopt it right
Yeah.
away, but when I got my MP3 player just this summer, I pulled it out of the drawer and I changed the AAA battery and I plugged it in and listened to, and there's songs on there that I don't hear very often. I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that tune. This is great. So it's a nostalgic thing when I pull out my MP3 player, which sounds crazy because it doesn't seem like it's been that long since that technology came around. Still fond of CDs, but again, it's a commitment to the format to go through the stack of CDs, pick out something, and this is what I'm going to listen to, and this is all I have. This 45-minute, this hour-long album. This is what I'm going to listen to
Right.
this time period. So, yeah, when you have certain mediums that you listen to, then it is some of them are a commitment to that. And it does make it more special when you have to sit down. When I pull out an LP and put it down and put it on the turntable, you do have to sit down and listen to it and appreciate it, because hell, if you're cleaning up, if you're doing housework on Saturday, you put an LP on, you're not gone long. You got to come back and flip it over. So it is, portioning out that little bit of time to sit down and appreciate that. And I certainly recommend that, whether it's, whatever format you're listening to, maybe pick an album to listen to, sit down and just focus on that, because
Right.
it can slow life down. Everything's moving so fast now.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. Like, if you're listening to streaming music all the time, there's not that commitment because you have everything available to you,
Right.
everything literally. So, I appreciate the streaming that I do. I appreciate the times
Ease
that
of use,
yeah,
the availability. It
that's
is great.
definitely fun. Whatever I want to listen to, I can pull it up in seconds.
It's literally at the fingertips.
Well, let's
Yeah,
talk about some,
I appreciate too being able to sit down and commit myself to music for a
right.
moment.
I do want to comment on, we talked about the CD and what you've got. Of course, you could have anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, or even
80 minutes.
more than 60 minutes. But still, when you think about that, seems like a long time, but now it's not a long time where you could listen to streaming for 10 hours.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a different concentration, maybe, how much attention you're giving something, as you've mentioned. And I agree with that. But do you think CDs have kind of had their day in the sun, and I don't see them going away, but I really don't see them being popular again, like really, like vinyl has come back. I don't see CDs ever coming back like that
Yes,
in the future. I think that they serve their purpose.
Yeah, when they started coming out, it was such an amazing thing, and it was so much
Right.
more portable and so much more reliable than a cassette for your vehicle.
Right.
Yeah.
I still like CDs. I still buy new CDs because the way I listen at home, if I'm doing something, I have a big boom box with excellent speakers.
Right.
I will take 4 or 5 CDs, whatever I'm doing in whatever room, or if I'm out at the workbench or something, working on something, putting something together, and I'll just put the first one on and, start it or whatever. And then I listen that way. But I still, even though I download music, I'll buy music online, I will still buy the physical CD if it's something that I think I'm going to listen to over and over, and I want it physically because, I'm not using my electronics. I just am doing something with my hands, and I want it loud on the good speakers.
Right.
Instead of hooking up the Bluetooth and doing all that. And then,
Yeah.
and then you get signal interruptions sometime when you're streaming. And that's the only downside of streaming is you have to have that constant signal, and depends on what platform you have. You could have commercials if you're not paying for
Right.
certain
Premium membership.
whatever. And I hate that just takes you right out of the zone, whatever you want to call it. But
Right.
yeah, I think the last CDs I bought were the new Smashing Pumpkins, the new Cure, and the latest George Winston release. I don't think I bought anything since that was last November, I think. So it's not like I'm going out all the time, because not everything comes out on CD. There's a lot of stuff that, especially a lot of the synthwave stuff that I listen to, it's only available. You can download it and buy it, download it. You can stream it. And then they come out with, when something's first released, they'll come out with, a fancy colored vinyl or something, a quadruple album or whatever, something like that, just because you can't fit so much music, on the wax or whatever. But I haven't bought a vinyl record. I can't remember. My turntable I don't even have a belt for it right now. I can't remember the last time I've sat down and put
Well, this is interesting to me.
on,
Mike, when is the last time you bought a new CD? I'm trying to think.
The last new CD I bought, I'm sure it was sometime this year. Oh, I bought.
Oh, really? A new release. A new release. I mean,
a new release.
Yeah,
Oh,
I bought old CDs.
Yeah,
but a new release. I'm
New
really
release,
struggling.
It has been a long time.
It's
can't think of the
a
last
struggle
one.
for me. So I would say that we have a divide amongst the three of us there. I understand the desire to hang on to the physical product, and I get it.
Yeah.
I know that back when I first started buying books on Kindle, and now I buy them on Audible. I listen to them in the car, and we'll get to that. And I remember having a couple of people say, "Oh, no. I want to actually have the book in my hand." I was like, I get it. But I was like, I don't really see this is going to continue. I mean, surely people are going to still there's going to be books printed, but it's just like newspapers and magazines. The digital age is here, and people, especially younger people, they don't really have that connection or desire. They don't really have that. To them, it's just information.
Well, that's just it. I think if you're looking for information, magazines, newspapers, that's going to go digital, of course.
Right.
Now I have a Kindle. I've had my Kindle I'm on my third one now, and I'm a cheapskate when it comes to that stuff. Almost all the books on my Kindle are either free or just a few. I don't think I've spent more than $4 on a book on my Kindle. And a lot of those books are classics and some things that I can pick up and put down. I'm not going to be really invested in it, but that's kind of like if I'm at an event waiting, or if I'm at the beach or something, I'll have that. Now, if it's something I'm excited about and something I really want to read, then I'll go and buy the paper copy. I'll buy the actual book because it's something you want to hold on to. And just like kids discovering LPs, I think kids will discover CDs in the same way, because there's that tactile experience you have of holding something in your hand. This is a physical copy of this thing, and there's some kind of appreciation for the interaction with that medium. With albums and with LPs and CDs, you have the liner notes that you can read and the cover art. The cheap books I buy on Kindle, it's hard to highlight and underline things. You can, but the versions I buy, you can't do that.
So do you think
a highlighter and mark things in a paper book?
Do you think 10 or 15 years, or whatever, just an arbitrary amount of time throwing out there, that young kids or younger people will appreciate the disc, the CD, like they have the record? See, I don't think so.
It's hard to say.
I'll say why.
In that amount of time, it's hard to say, but I think
whatever time it is, it may be 25 years, whatever.
Yeah, there's always going to be someone who appreciates, the past and the technology that was there.
But do you think it's because there's going to be so few people, they think, oh, I'm unique here? I think there's always a part of the population is like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'm going to do something against the grain. I'm
Yeah.
going to do this because this is not really hip, and this is going to be my, you know, whatever you want to call it. I
Certainly
was
there's
going to
a
say something I won't, but
yeah. Certainly there's a portion of the population who's going to do that, who's going to say, "Oh, this is better," or "I'm going to be cool because I know
but
about
it's
this."
not better though. I don't think it is better. I think that the people that might choose to do that, and we'll see. I
Yeah.
don't think the CD was ever better than the LP, only in the fact that you didn't have to deal with you had a smaller format, and it
Mhm.
was easier to use in a lot of ways, and it sounded cleaner. But sonically, it did not sound better. Now
Only remasters
we were
have
sold
been up.
that it was better, but it was never better. Because for those who don't know, the early CDs were mastered with the master tapes of that were done for LPs, so they were never mastered properly.
And you remember
We
when they first came out, they would have those warnings on it. This format will show the limitations of the original
Right,
recording,
Yeah.
right.
because there are limitations in that. For I don't know. I've seen arguments for and against LPs that they're better than CDs.
They do
Kind of,
sonically sound better. I will go on record and saying that I personally think they sound better. I've
yeah, but
I've sat down and compared them. I
yeah,
totally believe that an LP, not only for the visceral experience and the time that you need to carve out, I've compared them. I think of
mhm,
myself as having a good set of ears. I absolutely think that LPs sound warmer. They sound more 3D. Now, this is all depending on what kind of system you have.
yeah.
If you have a little, school 40, that's not gonna sound good. But if you have a decent sound system, I totally will go on record as saying that I prefer records. It's a more satisfying experience.
Well,
There's a huge difference in when CDs first came out, and then let's say 10 years later, somebody said, this sucks. I want my CD to sound like it's supposed to sound, but they had to remaster the whole thing. And they didn't do that for a lot of albums because the money was not going to be there. But you got your top artists. You got, I don't know, Van Halen, Ozzy, whatever, Springsteen. And those remastered CDs are sonically a world away from the way the CD first came out, because I've got double
Oh,
copies
yeah, me too.
of
Well,
remastered
I
stuff,
did.
and it's much closer to the sound of the album. When you put an album on you could take the original album, put it on your finest sound system, and it sounds amazing. And you could take the CD that came out first, put it on
Yeah.
same sound system, and it's missing
Oh, yeah.
so much stuff. But then you take the remastered CD, and it's much closer to the album. Um, but yeah, and I think that for us people that really listen to the music, and
Right.
there was that loss there, because when CDs first came out, a lot of stuff that wasn't remastered, it was terrible. It wasn't even as good as the stuff they were recording digitally, because that was a new recording, like something that
mhm.
was, let's say, Nirvana or whatever. It was basically meant for that medium.
Right.
Um, Whereas something not remastered but just released on CD, it was just, the comparison was miles apart. But
Well,
yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think there's a
agree.
lot of variables there. The style of music, how it was recorded,
Mhm.
how it was put on CD, and the remasters. I've got at least two on the shelf that are terrible. They're so, they try to increase the output. It
Yeah.
sounds,
Again,
oh,
it
it's
depends on who
terrible.
is doing it.
So
You got
there's
to
a
have
lot of variables
the talent
involved.
there to
Yeah.
remaster it.
But as far as, Jamie, I'll accept that you believe that. I'm not convinced, but then I have hearing loss on one side. So, um, you know,
Well, it's my
maybe
opinion. I mean, I'm not the
the spectrum
authority.
that maybe I should.
I actually have sat down and compared them though, because and I
Yeah.
was shocked because I wasn't expecting that to be the result. I was not expecting that because
Yeah.
first of all, you have to be very careful with an LP. You're going to have pops. So
Yeah.
if that's your criteria for it being less superior than a CD, you're absolutely right. It's not as good.
It's not as
If
durable.
that's super, super important to you, it's not as critical to me. Now, I wouldn't want to have a record that was just full of pops. That wouldn't be satisfying, but I want to have the transients. And there's something about a vinyl experience that I truly do believe is superior. Now, I say that from somebody who this has been some time ago. I don't currently, my lifestyle is not conducive to me having a sound system for LPs. It doesn't make any sense at this point in my life. I would love to do that,
Yeah.
but um I'll just say how in the last, I'll say 10 years, you know, I said 5 years, but for me, the last 5 years have been pretty much the same. So, I when I bought my first laptop, I completely embraced iTunes, and for a brief period of time, um now I was also burning CDs and had CDs in the car. I think I went through a big period where I was burning CDs, um, or copying them. I actually bought a Harman Kardon CD copier, which cost a lot of money 25 years ago, and
And
I
you had
thought
to
that it sounded good, and it really didn't sound that great. It wasn't really good, but I thought this was fantastic technology. I had one of those for a year or so.
and the giant thing carrying 400 CDs around in your car, and you're flipping
Right.
through all the pages trying to find that CD.
Well, you think about, you can only judge it based on what's been available to you up to that point.
Yeah.
You think about, you could only put one cassette in, and you could have one, two sides, and you might have 45 minutes, you might have an hour, you might have 80 minutes, whatever, or 120 minutes, I guess, potentially. But, when CDs, I never had a multiple player that I can recall where I had 6 disc changer. I don't think I ever did.
I had
I
one.
always just put a CD in it, and usually that got me to where I was going, and one CD was fine. I would listen to that, and I enjoyed it. I had no issues with it, and I would have a big container or folder of 40 or 50 discs in the car, and I look back on that and go, "God, man, it sounded fine, and it was fine, and I enjoyed it." It was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna have my music with me no matter what." But when I bought iTunes, and I continue to burn these discs for years, way too long, looking back on it, how much money I spent on blank CDs, and still bought the music on iTunes and then burned discs and really put a lot of TLC into trying to EQ it properly. And I really was a maniac about it. I love sound, and I want it to sound as good as it can.
I can
I
see
did
that.
this for years, and then I would say about 8 years ago, I rented a car that had Apple CarPlay in it, and I was actually carrying around a bunch of USB drives. And the sound quality wasn't great. It was fine. It was a bunch of music, but I accidentally discovered that this car had Apple CarPlay, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" And then, of course, for those who have never had it, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, the sound quality is really good. Even phone calls are way better than Bluetooth. I don't know what technology is involved. It is not the same. It is superior. Everything sounds better. I don't know how they do it, but it's the case. And once you get used to it, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
So I continue to ask for cars until I bought the last couple of cars I've had. I would always insist on asking for a car that had Apple CarPlay in it. And, not to mention that using Google Maps, it's nice to have that feature. But when you're used to I currently have 4,000 songs on my phone, and we can talk about MP3 player versus an iPhone or whatever phone you have. That is one of the great things about an Apple device. It's essentially an iPod, you know, and of course you can do the same thing on an Android phone. I've had plenty of Android phones over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
They've been great. Um, and I currently use an app called Jet Audio, which has an algorithm, Bon Jovi. Tony Bon Jovi, which was John Bon Jovi's uncle, I believe, or cousin, used to be an engineer for a power station in New York, and he developed this algorithm. I don't know how many years ago. I discovered it in 2011. I've used it ever since. It remasters everything in real time,
Oh,
and
wow.
just it sounds far, far superior to anything else out there. And that Jet Audio app I've told many, many people about. I'm telling you folks, there is an Android version, there's an Apple version. I've used it for years, and it makes everything sound better. It's definitely worth looking into. And you can buy everything with all the add-ons for less than $15,
Hmm.
and it really, really makes a difference. So once you get used to having however you process music, I can't imagine going back to CDs ever for me personally. And I would consider myself very, very picky about music. And to me, going to CDs would not be superior
No, not
than the
anymore.
files that I currently have. There's not going to be audibly different. And it wouldn't sound as good because of the EQ that I have with this app, Jet Audio, and also with the Bon Jovi that's built into the app. It's an add-on. You have to pay extra for it, but it makes everything sound so much better. And you can choose how you personally hear things. It's just, it's pretty amazing. I just can't imagine listening to music any other way these days. And
Yeah, once you find something superior, I mean, it's
yeah,
nobody buys a nice house and then says, I'm tired of all this nice comfort. I'm going to go live in a shack down by the river with no insulation.
right.
Nobody does that. Nobody's going to, So once you find your thing, your medium, whatever you want to call it, like I said, I there's no way I would. Album sounds superior, but it's inconvenient. There's no way I can't move my turntable all around the house or take it outside to the workbench or something like that. It would be ridiculous to try to change albums and listen to albums outside. Where,
But
like I
that's
said,
based on your lifestyle.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If you had, again, as Mike stated, I think it's important to point out the part of the whole experience with an LP is literally carving out time and
Yeah,
sitting
to
down and say,
listen to
we're
music.
gonna
Yeah,
listen. I'm gonna listen to this, and the way we did when we were kids,
Yeah.
when we were younger.
In the
We literally
beanbag
just sat
with the
there in
black
our
light on.
bedrooms, whatever. Yeah, we did. Looked at the album credits. We just sat there on our bed or in the bed, whatever, beanbag, whatever.
it was active listening. It
Yeah,
wasn't.
it was.
It
We were
wasn't
paying attention to things,
exactly.
and we were soaking it all up.
Yeah.
And that part is, I don't
I
think
don't
as
know
many
how
people listen actively as almost everyone did a long time ago.
I wonder how many of, let's say, a 15-year-old would experience. No, we didn't have the distractions that they have. In
I
fairness
know
to
15,
them,
I have 15-year-olds in our family, and what they do is they have their AirPods in and they're listening to music and they're scrolling and they're texting and they're doing all this stuff. They're not listening to what they're listening to. It's just background music, and it's ubiquitous and it's annoying.
we may be one of the last
Yeah,
generations to have had that
experience.
experience. It's possible. I mean, I don't know.
I've talked to several of the kids in
I
the
don't
family.
feel
I'm like,
superior for that. Just
no, it's not
for the
superior.
record, I don't feel like we are special or anything.
It's
I
a
just wanna
blessing
say
to
that.
have had that.
I'm glad to have
And
experienced it.
yeah, and you have that connection to the music, whereas
Oop.
it's just background music for whatever else they're doing. It might as well be music. It might as well be elevator music. It might as well be whatever, because
Well, I'm gonna be more diplomatic and say I don't know. I want to be fair to them.
well, not
It
everyone,
would seem
in my
that way.
experience,
I
I've
don't want
seen
to
it
be
happen,
critical and say that is the case because we may have a 15-year-old that watches and go, "That ain't me."
Like I
So
said,
I
not
don't know.
everyone. There's always
Yeah,
exceptions,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I have hope for the future. My
I'm
niece,
optimistic as well.
yeah,
I am.
my niece, I found out was collecting LPs. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then I find out shortly after she didn't have a turntable. She was just collecting
Oh,
LPs.
wow.
I'm
That
like,
sounds like me buying picks and not having a
Yeah.
guitar.
So we made sure she had something to play them on, and
That's great.
I'm enthusiastic that she's really into collecting LPs and searching them out, and
That's cool.
she's got a nice variety of music that she listens to. So I was very impressed, and that gives me hope that
Yeah.
she and other kids like her, maybe they're in the minority, but they're appreciating the music, and owning that and playing it. You realize that you have to sit down and listen to it. So focus
Well,
on that. So
I just want to
yeah,
go on record as
I'm hopeful.
saying that I am absolutely not of the mindset that we're screwed, that nothing's ever going to be as good as it was. I don't feel that way, and I would never say that. Who knows what the future is? I will totally embrace technology. I am totally on board. I love the idea of having an app for podcasts, an app for audible books, my app for music. To me, I love phones. I'm not one of these constant scrollers or whatever, but still it's always in my pocket.
Yeah.
I always have it with me, and I don't feel the same when I don't have it with me. So, you can take that for whatever it's
You
worth.
freak out when you can't find your phone. Where's my
Yeah,
phone?
we
Oh,
do depend on them.
oh,
I
it's
mean, it is not only is it a
tool now.
communication
Yeah.
device, I mean,
Mhm.
it really is a lifeline in
The
many,
actual
many
phone
different ways.
part is probably the least used part.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
proud to say that when I get home from work at night and on the weekends, I put my phone on my valet, and unless I go out the
Yeah.
door, I may not see it
You make
until
him hold that all
I
night?
make my valet hold my phone.
Oh, it's terrible.
No, I put my phone down, and you guys might call or text, and I may not see it for hours.
We
'Cause
I can
know.
vouch for
I s-
that.
Yes,
yes,
we know.
I can vouch for that.
I'm not near
Yeah.
my phone, so I
No, I
appreciate being
applaud
able to
that.
set it
I
aside
applaud
at
that.
home.
For
Um,
me, when I have a lot of communications, I'm just trying to toss out the ideas,
Yeah.
and just thoughts, and
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily looking for an immediate response. I just
well,
want a response, but
yeah, but I'm not saying I'm not a slave to the phone, because you've got everything on there, all the information
right.
You
and
buy
connections you
everything on
need.
there? Yeah.
It's all there, so there's no way around it.
Yeah,
But
I think it's great. Personally, I would never say, regardless how this might have seemed like the direction I was going in, that vinyl is absolutely superior. I don't think it's superior. I just think it's superior to CDs for sure. That is my personal opinion. But I'm totally on board with technology. I love the fact that we have all of this available to us. And we haven't even really talked about streaming, really. I
yeah,
mean, we've kind of given it, you know, let's just touch on that briefly. I mean, how we personally listen to music. I don't stream personally, but I totally get it. And I know that you guys stream music way more than
Yeah, that's
than
yeah,
I
probably
do.
the most way I listen to music is streaming.
yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if I want to hear an album, I'll start the album and then I have it set to where it's just random. The algorithm or whatever
That's
chooses
another great
the
thing.
next
You could
song.
never have done that before.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
now I mean I've been turned on to so much new music just because. Whoa, what is this playing? Let me go over here and see what's
Yeah.
playing, and then
This is the new radio of our generation
yep,
Yeah.
and the current world, streaming and all the new things that you might hear. This is our radio. It's it's just the way it is.
mhm.
Yeah.
You know, you are likely not to hear one song 4 times in 12 hours. Like if you have a hit that you're listening to on the radio, and not to take thing away from that. It serves its purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is there to promote
But
it?
it is what it is. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
there to promote the artist. But,
But
with it's
I was going to say on my car, I've got one station. I don't even think it's programmed. Got one radio station set on my car. That's Guilford College Radio, of course. But otherwise, I get in my car, I put my phone down, and it automatically connects, and I listen to the music I was streaming during the day. So,
wow.
I'm kind of stuck on streaming myself. That's
Veggie,
that's the majority of the music I hear.
VeggieTales on the way home. I
Yeah,
guess?
VeggieTales there, VeggieTales back.
I will say this, the technology will get there. It's not currently there, but it will get there. And I've lamented over this. I've thought about this. I'm like, how foolish am I gonna feel whenever the technology gets to where it's pretty much on par with the music that I've purchased. It eventually will get there.
Yeah.
And then there will be no reason not to stream. It's gonna get there. I don't know how long it's gonna take. I don't know what that's gonna mean. I don't know if the way we consume music and how it's processed is gonna change radically and compensate for the way music is streamed. There's gonna be some way to uncompress it, some possible way digitally. I
Yeah.
don't know. I have no idea, but there will be some way that music is essentially hi-fi as it can be in a way that we can mass consume. And then whenever that comes, hey man, I even though will have purchased who knows how much music at that point, there will be no reason for me to put it on my device. I can
Yeah.
listen to whatever I want to. And I totally support that. I look forward to that day.
Yeah.
I'm ready for Beam Me Up Scotty, man. I'm ready for it.
Imagine in 10 years, my kids will be saying, back in my day,
Yeah.
that's not how we listen to music. Because whatever technology is going to be so foreign at that time.
Well, there
the
has to be a
chip in the
demand
back
for
of your neck playing music.
Yeah.
somebody has got to feel passionate enough to, make this happen. Somebody has to care enough to make technology. It's not going to be just good enough. I know however many years ago, Neil Young was super passionate about and created a device called the Pono.
Yeah.
And they have FLAC files, lossless files. But the problem is that it takes up so much space on your computer or whatever storage.
Yeah.
That's a concern. You could have 100 albums or 1,000 albums. How much space do you need? Are you going to eat up a terabyte full of space
Probably
or
more.
500 gigabytes? Who
Yeah.
knows?
Mhm.
That's a concern. So it's not, that's not a perfect solution. And clearly that device didn't last. People they didn't want it. So it died. And then I would say that the Apple or the iPhone and any phone is so ubiquitous. It's everybody has it. And it's a great way to listen to music. It's just the way it is. And you can embrace it, or you can just say, well, I don't want, I'm be resistive.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know what the point of that is. It is the way it is.
Yeah, there's no point in resisting it. It's
Yeah.
well,
So to me, I personally love technology.
and it makes it so much more convenient. That's the best thing.
To me, the sound quality, you can make it sound better.
Mhm.
And I can't promote this app. Well, I can't promote it enough, but I will say that I would recommend people check it out. Jet Audio, high res music player. It's a free app. Like I said, for a reasonable amount of money, less than $20, I think you can have every option on it, and it sounds great. And you really have the ability to. Now, this is music that you would put on your device. This doesn't alter streaming.
Yeah.
Although I think that they're working toward that. Now, if they can figure out how to have that interact with a streaming song, there you go. They've cured that problem. That right there will cure me, and I will never. Now, again, Grant, you said this is all depending on you having either, your phone, whether you've got Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, you're eating up a lot of data.
Mhm.
So that's the other part of this. If you're going on a 8-hour or 10-hour drive across country or to another state, and you could eat up a lot of data if you are trying to access the highest quality that you can.
Better have unlimited, real unlimited, not just fake unlimited.
That's why you bring along your CD collection.
There are things that you have
in
to
the back
consider.
seat and get a plug adapter for your
Or
outlet, USB.
put all of your music on your phone like I do. There's things that you have to compromise on. To me, I have I don't want to put 80,000 songs on my phone.
Yeah.
You know, if there's something that I simply don't have on my phone, I do have Apple Music. I usually use Apple Music. I don't use Spotify, even though I have a Spotify account, but I'll type that in and it sounds decent. It doesn't sound as good as I want it to sound. And I have it on the highest quality that it will be, but it's still not as good as what I have on my phone. But it's okay, you know, and it certainly I can understand what they're saying and it's good enough. But it's interesting to me the people who get used to that and thinking, well, that's as good as it is.
No, it's
Boy,
going
it's
to
not
get
as good as
better.
it is. That's the part that's a little scary. It's like whatever your norm is, it's like, well, it's good enough. That's kind of bothers me. I want it to sound great. And I guess you could drive yourself crazy being super picky, or you could just say, well, it's good enough.
If they developed a technology where you could get an implant and it would connect to your whatever device you're using, but the sound quality would be like you're in the studio with the band and everything was like EQ'd perfectly and frequencies were all dialed in, would you get an implant?
Hmm. Well, let me try to answer that. I would be intrigued by it, but here's the problem with it. How distracting would that be? You couldn't do that while you're in the car, even though you listen to music in the car. How? I think it would probably distract you if you had the ability to have it sound that good. You'd have to either turn the volume down really low, and then if you had the ability to sit there versus having headphones on and really having
Yeah.
that great experience, I don't know. That's a good question. That's a I think it would be really distracting. It'd almost be like having headphones on in the car,
It would take
which you
some getting
wouldn't
used
want,
to. Yeah,
and
that's
you
for
could
sure.
get into accidents, and there would have to be legislation about you wouldn't be able to do it, or I don't know. I think it would be almost dangerous because, I mean, that would be something that would really get you in a frame of mind,
Mhm.
and to listen to something like that and be in a vehicle or be able to operate machinery or something. I'm not even trying to be funny by that, but I think it would be almost dangerous.
It could, especially at first. Anytime you're getting used to something brand new,
Yeah.
there's that distraction, no matter what it is. It's like riding a motorcycle, and before there was no technology to be able to listen to music on a motorcycle, unless
Right.
you had a big Harley hog and you had the big loudspeakers and stuff like that. And that's not ideal at all. But
Right.
once they developed the iPod came out, you just throw your earbuds in, put your helmet on, and start playing. You can turn it up as loud as you want, and then, oh, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't hear that siren. Or I didn't hear
Right.
this car blaring its horn at me, and that's why I got into an accident. So obviously that danger is still there, but that was comparable to what you're saying about it. It could distract you from,
Well,
you could have an accident.
I can certainly say as somebody who's reaching, my golden years, for me, I think it'd be more tempting than it would be for a 25-year-old.
Hmm.
For somebody who's has the time and the ability to really sit down and enjoy something. I would if I had the ability to do that versus putting on a record and I had the sound quality sound like it was in a studio, I would definitely be intrigued. I would
Hmm.
consider it, as long as it made sense, financially. If it cost $250,000 to do it, no, I would not do it, but, yeah,
Just
if
sell
it was
your
something
amps
that
and
made
your
sense.
your downloaded music, and you're there. You go. Pays for it.
Yeah, this is interesting to think about all the possibilities. I mean, we don't know where this is all going.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
no.
I mean, we will be I just read something, about Ray Kurzweil, I think yesterday, about he's the one that came up with the idea of singularity, I guess, or one of the guys. And, however many years that is in the future, if that ever happens. But, he talked about, nano robots and nanobots or whatever, um, curing a lot of ills
Hmm.
and extending lifespan and, aging. And, also about being able to have the ability to have implants put in that would allow us to access computer information. So the idea is not, I mean, it's been around for a while.
Hmm.
How it will manifest itself truly, like, I would imagine that they can do that to make you access information on a computer and double the information you have in your brain and your processing power. That sounds so sci-fi and unrealistic, but who knows? I mean, 50 years ago, we couldn't have imagined being able to do what we're currently doing. Not for your everyday guy.
Yeah.
You think scrolling through Facebook ads is bad now?
Yeah.
Wait till they're put directly in your skull.
Yeah, there will be some way somebody will try to figure out how to monetize
Oh yeah.
and make
yeah,
money.
yeah.
There's always going to be somebody trying to figure out how to make a buck. But you know, we could get I don't want to get into that whole discussion about
Yeah.
you know, people implanting things into your brain, but I mean, God, man, it's exciting to think about what lies ahead. I hope I live long enough and we all live long enough that we can see some of the beautiful things that are coming. I do think they will be good.
Yeah.
There's always a fear in, you know, what could come along with it. You know, there's going to be bad that comes along with it, but there's going to be a lot of good things. And I will just end in saying that I'm very optimistic about things.
Mm.
I think that, you know, how we end up ultimately consuming music, that's just really exciting to think about for me. You know, but I currently
Yeah.
do really enjoy technology and I embrace it. And for me, it's not a negative thing at all,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, my final thought. I used to shop a lot. Now, when LPs were still the medium, I would buy CDs, but LPs too. And for the LPs, I would bring them straight home and put on a clean cassette. And the first time I listened, I'd record it on cassette and then put the
Yeah.
LP away. Because
Yeah.
mostly I listen to cassettes in the car. And
Yeah.
I do that with CDs too when I didn't have a
Yeah.
CD player in the car. And I still listen to the cassettes, not often at all, but I put them in and listened to an old cassette and thought, wow, that really sounds good because, I took the time to record it correctly. So
You could
technology,
also set the gain on it.
yes,
You had the
yeah,
ability to get the gain just like you wanted it,
right.
right in that magic, you know, little area.
Yeah,
And I think that's why I thought cassettes sounded great. I have no
yeah,
problem with cassettes.
yeah. I
I
had
don't
Dolby C on my recorder, so
right.
that made a big difference over Dolby B.
Yeah.
But as far as technology goes, the medium, I appreciate all of it. I love to sit down and listen to an LP. I love to put on the cassette and reminisce about, when I do that, I think about where that album came from.
Yeah.
The MP3 player, like I said, I'll plug in when I'm mowing the lawn. I
Yeah.
stream all day long. All of it, it has its place. It's not. Some of it may seem outdated, but it's all still viable. It just
Yeah.
depends on how you use it and to appreciate what you have. You know,
Yeah, that's it.
um, 8-track tapes can suck it because they're terrible, but otherwise,
That was
you
the
know,
worst. I would say that was the worst music format there ever was.
man, listening to Styx Grand
That was
Illusion,
yeah.
and I forget what song it is, but you're on track 3,
And it changes over.
and that song fades
Clunk,
out,
clunk, clunk.
ka-clunk, and then it fades back
Yeah.
right in the middle of the song. 8-tracks are terrible, but
I
we
I
listen
can
to them.
say I just wanna say briefly about a 8-track. This was a very this was just so common when we were kids. I
Yeah,
mean, you know, it was just the way it was. Cars had 8-track players. You had 8-track players at home. And for, I would say, a couple of years, I had 8 tracks. Maybe not even a couple of years, maybe just a year. But I had a 8-track of that I bought new of Kiss Dynasty, and there's a song on there called X-Ray Eyes. And literally for a year, the way X-Ray Eyes faded out and then came back on, there was a guitar solo for about 3 to 4 seconds that completely was not you couldn't
Oh,
hear on
you
the
could
8
hear it
track.
all.
This
Yeah.
yeah.
particular 8 track, I remember listening to the song on LP and like, "What is this?" That to me was my validation that 8-track was just totally inferior, and I did not miss it a bit when it finally said goodbye. There was nothing good about it. Sonically, it didn't particularly sound good, and it was just not a good way to listen to music.
Yeah.
It's amazing how accepted it was, but guy, it was everywhere.
It was
When we
convenient.
were
It was
kids.
portable.
Mhm.
And then cassettes came out and so
Yeah,
a lot of 8-tracks.
Yep.
cassettes were far, far superior.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still have fond memories of cassettes, way more than I do with CDs, oddly enough. Cassettes were smaller and they were relatively cheap.
And you could make your own mix.
And there was only
Yeah,
one kerclunk, and it wasn't in the middle of a
Yeah, the
song.
one kerclunk.
yeah. But you really could, if you had a good grade of blank cassette, you could really make a good sounding cassette. It
Yeah.
sounded, I think, better than a CD. Or it sounded really, really good and satisfying. So
Yeah.
there is
That
something
tape,
about the
nothing's-
analog thing of tape.
Yeah,
It really does have
it's
a thing.
magnetic.
There is something about it. But any final thoughts from either one of you?
Not till they come out with the MP3 player that also mows the lawn while you're listening to the music.
That's ideal. That would be ideal.
All right.
No
Well,
thoughts on this couch.
all right. Well, thanks for checking in, everybody. Please like and subscribe. And we really appreciate all the people who have subscribed. Please leave a comment if you have any thoughts on this particular episode. We will see you guys next week.
Be well.